Hi, welcome back to my channel, and as you can see from the title, this is my November wrap-up, so stay tuned. Okay, so for just the month of December, I have a couple of books that I did read, and I am excited to share some of them with you today. And at the end of this video, I will, if you have seen my first video, which was very lengthy, and thank you if you watched it, that you finished to the end. But in that video, I mentioned about my Advent, the 12 days of bookmas Advent calendar, so to speak. And we'll be opening the first box for day one at the end. And so stay tuned for that. But let's go ahead and get started. How I'm going to talk about these books, I am going to go from the lowest to the highest in ratings, and I'll just share what I liked and what I didn't like, and you'll kind of see a little bit about my preferences, and you know, if they are similar to yours, then maybe these are some books that you would like to read. We're gonna go ahead and get started. So for the first book, I had, actually it was a DNF, which did not finish. And that book is called The Lost Apothecary by Sarah Penner. The Lost Apothecary is a book about a woman named Caroline, I believe, named Caroline. And she is going through marital issues. In fact, right on the week of going on an anniversary trip, she discovers that her husband had committed infidelity. He had an affair. And so devastated, she decides that she's going to go on this trip on her own and rethink about the marriage and how her life might look moving forward. So on the trip, she decides to partake in an event called mudlarking, and it's when you go down to the river's edge, and when the tide is down, there's a lot of old relics, and you just shift through them and see if there is something older that might tie into the past. And so she goes and finds a glass bottle with little etching of a bear on it, and is curious about it and starts to look through the history or find some history about it. And so that's the present day. And if I didn't mention before, it was in England. And so so the book then goes to a different point of view where you meet this woman named Nella. And Nella is an apothecary person, and she gets the natural remedies from the earth to create like medicine for those primarily for like women's health and to help women through many ailments. But you find out that she doesn't just help, but mostly her big thing that she does is to create poison so women could give to the men who have hurt them in their lives. And that is a bit of a dark turn. So as the story kind of unfolds, you do meet a third perspective, and it's and it does play in the story, but it does alternate between two timelines. And so I first saw this book and thought it was beautiful. The cover was just beautiful, and decided to give it a try. So I wasn't particularly interested in the apothecary side, so to speak. I was more interested in more present day because I liked how the character goes through the research, and I was really curious to see how I guess she would handle this issue that she's going through. But there were little signs here and there where I kind of felt tugged, like, oh, I don't know, this can go on to the realm of, like, I guess in a way, like witchcraft. That was the first thing I was very weary of. I was like, okay, if this shows any sign of that, I don't really want to read about it, in the sense of just like how far are they going to go in with it. And so I got up to 80% of the book, and by then I had to put a pause on it, and I skimmed through the end because I was just curious about one particular story, how it was going to end, and decided that this was just not going to be the book for me. I was actually very frustrated. And so I know that's not typically how you should read these books, but I was in a place to where I'm like, if I felt like I was going to waste the time on a book, I was just going to put it down, or I would just be upset and didn't want to essentially waste time because there were other books that I really wanted to get to. So, like I said, 80%. I was done. To me, it felt like it was not worth to finish just because I didn't like how things were progressing and going. And yeah, that's really much all I have to say about that book. So the second book is a 3-star book. And this book is actually a really short book. And it is called Surprised: Living Life in the Unexpected. And this is written by Scott Hinkle. Okay. And Scott Hinkle is an evangelist. He actually has a ministry and has spoken at my church before, plenty of times. And he has a really amazing testimony. He is really on fire for the Lord, and really big on evangelism. And this was one of the books that he wrote. And so this book essentially talks about what God can do in your life. You're never too far gone, and he has a purpose for you, and he calls you out. And so when he calls you and you've committed your life to Christ, it's to how to live in expectancy that he can do. He still moves, that he can do just wonderful works. He can call those that we don't expect could be called. He, like Scott Hinkle, was someone who was into drugs, and just how he was delivered from that, and how people could not see how this man could now preach that gospel because of just what his life was beforehand. And so yeah, it was a good read. I rated it 3 stars, and yeah, that's all I really have to say about that. I really like him speaking a lot, and this book is written in a way of how he would speak. But yeah, it's an encouraging book. Okay, so the next book that I read this month is a 4-star, and this is called Project Hail Mary by Andy Weir. And I have heard previously The Martian but on audio, and I found this book through watching the movie first. So typically I would read the book before I watched the movie, but this was the first that I've heard of it, so it's fine. But I really enjoyed the movie a lot. So I picked up the audiobook, and the rest was history. I will say though, if you are not big on swearing for whatever reason. There is a character in there that does swear a lot. It did get kind of hard to listen after some time, at least for me, because I really don't like to hear swear words or at all. So I did the book in chunks, but it was still a great book. So, but just wanted to throw out that word of caution. But that was The Martian. Project Hail Mary is different. It actually has very few, if not maybe like, I don't know, 3 swear words in it. So this one was a little easier to read in that regard. But Project Hail Mary is about a man who wakes up and has no idea his name, no idea where he's at. He sees that he has 2 people that he's in a room with who are dead, and he's like, what in the world happened? And the whole book is him regaining memory and just seeing how smart he really is. It's just how he starts to piece things together is amazing, because it's how in the world would you come up with remembering this by doing a simple math equation or something like that. So it's a good book. I enjoyed it. It has a lot. It was heavy in like science and some parts, so those I had to like either reread, or the author explains it later, or in fact my husband would explain it to me. He actually read it before I did, and just it was one of those books he could not put down. And my husband just like, he really actually convinced me to put this up higher in my reading list so we could talk about it. But it was a good book, and it was a surprising one. At one point in the book, I will say, I had a thought of, where's the author going to go with this? Because I typically don't really like to read books like where I felt like it was going. And that's just a preference thing. It's not like, oh, it's bad, or no, it was just like the storyline, so to speak. So, but because I'm very particular in like my space stories, or like my science fiction stories, or movies, so to speak. So, but it helped with the story, and it was turned out to be one part that I really did enjoy, and so I'm glad I continued through. But it was really good, and I would highly recommend it. I think Oshina has read it, so if you like Oshina's book recommendations, this one is one that she thoroughly enjoys as well. All right, the next book that I am going to talk about is an audiobook, or you can get a physical copy, but it's called The Magician's Nephew by C.S. Lewis. So The Magician's Nephew is a story previous to the Chronicles of Narnia. So this takes place with a young kid, or 2 young kids, a boy and a girl, and they just find a friendship with each other. And the little boy is staying with his aunt and his uncle because his mom is very sick, to the point of where she is just, they don't think she's gonna make it. And so he forms a friendship with this little girl, and they have a fun time just exploring his house, and they come across his uncle. And his uncle is known to be a little crazy, like he's the magician, I guess, and decides that he wants to see if these rings that he obtained would transport these kids to a magical world. And so it happens pretty early on. So I guess I'll just stop there. but the audiobook is old. It is hilarious, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. I gave this book a 4.5 stars because I just thought the narrator was phenomenal. So that's all I'm going to say about the book, because from these magical rings transporting the children to a different world, the story unfolds from there. So it had a lot to unpack. Like, I forget how much C.S. Lewis unpacks a story, or like vividly tells a story through his writing, and he puts a lot of like Christian allegories in it, and it was great conversation from a children's book. And again, I've never read these books, and I'm excited to continue this series. So hopefully I could do that coming into the month of December, and I will definitely be listening to the audiobook if it's the same narrator, because he is just, he cracked me up. I loved it. So anyway, Magician's Nephew, 4.5 stars. The last book that I am currently reading right now is actually a workbook. And when I first bought it off of Amazon, I didn't know it was a workbook, even though it said a workbook, but for some reason it didn't compute in my brain, but that's okay. But this one is called Discover Your God-Given Gifts. It's a biblical handbook to help you discover why you think and act the way you do, how gifts affect your relationships, what career or ministry suits you best, and how using your gifts will bring you joy. And this is by Don and Katie Fortune. So that is the cover. And it's pretty big, so I'm probably not going to hold this up the entire time. But I'm currently working through the book. I will not finish at the end of this month. But I am taking it nice and slowly. I mean, there are just like pages where I'm highlighting and marking, and our home actually does a home group, or a hope group, which is homes open for prayer and encouragement. And usually my husband will give a word of exhortation, and we just have like fellowship, and we just eat with just people in our congregation, or like anyone we would invite. And I just found so much great information in this book that I decided that I wanted to help teach what I've learned in a way. And that was a big stepping point for me, actually getting up and talking about the book. But anyway, so the book or the workbook that I'm going through with right now, it does talk about like your God-given gifts, like what we would read in scriptures. And so in scripture, it talks about different types of giftings. So manifestation, ministry, and motivational gifts. Now, they're not characterized in the Bible exactly like this is the ministry gifts and the motivational gifts, and it's not like super point blank, so to speak, in the Bible, but the Bible does give different types of giftings that you have. And this book just breaks down those giftings and certain gifts, and it kind of helps you get a list of like, what does this gift usually do, and what are some of the things that this gifting might have trouble with. So it's not saying that you're only limited to one gift. And I totally agree with that. You are not limited in one gift. You actually can exhibit any of the gifts that are in the Bible, but like there are some that you are drawn more to because you were created with this tendency, and this is how you see the world through. And then there are some where you're being anointed for that time, and it's like, okay, you know, like, this is the time for you to go and evangelize, or to show compassion, or to serve. And I really liked that book said that, reminded me about it and said that. So anyway, I'm reading through the different types of giftings and what they, just descriptions about them. And if that is, if you like to see more into that, and maybe something that you would like to help go through with a spouse or a church group or with a friend, I would recommend it. It is scripturally sound. It is one of those that uses scripture a lot, and it breaks it down, and it does stress, again, that you don't have just 1 or 3 of these, that you exhibit all of them. There are just some that you tend to gravitate more towards. But again, as Christians, we should practice, you know, all the giftings, or be attuned to what the Lord tells us to do in that time. And so, yeah, good workbook, and I'm excited to finish it. So it is the time of the video where I will be showing you the first book, the first day of Bookmas. And I am so excited about this. I just can't wait. And of course, this video is going up the day before December. So how I'm doing the 12 days of Bookmas is I'm going to start on day 1 of December. And I know I've mentioned like Advent calendar, and I'm using words interchangeably, but this is, again, my Advent or 12 days of Bookmas calendar. And each box has a book. And again, I'll be vlogging my experience as I go through the book, and then at the end of each vlog I will open the next one. So exciting. All right, okay, so for the first book, let's see. Okay, so that was number 1. Okay. Okay, let's see if you can read that. Okay, there's this, it's oh, Love Where You Live, a nonfiction book. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and get that real quick. Okay, that took some time. Anyway, so Love Where You Live. This is the first book I will be reading in my 12 days of Bookmas. And I will say, starting off with a nonfiction is kind of not how I wanted to start, but I am interested in this book. And so just a reminder, Love Where You Live is a book where it talks about how to live sent in the place you call home. And this is by Shauna Pilgrim. So I guess it is a fitting book because, yeah, we're into the holidays. And I guess even though it wasn't like that fluffy romance or fiction book, it is a good book to start because it will talk about, hopefully, some good insight to like how to start off my holiday season, and that is in community. And so, yeah, anyway, that's the first book, and I will be vlogging, and I will make sure that I would keep you posted as much as I can. But I will start this. The 1st of December, so that would be tomorrow. If all goes well, this video comes up on November 30th, and so December 1st is when I will start, and I will vlog that experience. So thank you so much for joining me in this video, and I will see you in the next video. So bye.